Hi, welcome back, or if this is your first time listening, welcome. You're listening to First Gen Second Thoughts, and I'm Arishma, your co-host.
I'm Raja, you're the co-host.
And this is a podcast about two humans trying to heal who also happen to be married. We're hoping to help build a community of other humans who can resonate with us or any part of our story as well. We believe that everyone deserves to live a happy, healthy, and healed life. And from our lived experience, we know that therapy can help with that.
Yes. We had some listeners give us some feedback about what they would like to hear from us. And one of them was our academic background, because we never talked about that in the first one.
We didn't.
Yeah, I will go first. I have a psych degree in child development specifically, and ironically, I don't think I ever shared this with you, but I think I did that subconsciously to try to heal myself.
You tried to
in the long run.
Okay, via academia,
and just maybe I could do it myself because therapy is such a taboo. Like me trying therapy as a kid, it was not helpful for me personally. So, wow, revelations over a podcast.
Yeah, in real time. That's wild.
Yeah. So studied psych, and yeah, even in high school, it was a thing for me to study and be like a peer tutor, a peer mentor as well. So yeah, now that I kind of peel back my academia history, I've always been the type of person that's wanted to help people in just a different type of way. Cool. And yourself, honey?
Yeah, so I got my bachelor's in English. I also studied linguistics when I was in college, which completely makes sense because you can probably tell I'm a yapper. I paid to learn how to yap, either verbally or by writing. But it also makes sense because now that you mentioned the connection for you with your childhood and what you ended up studying. And for me, a fun tidbit about me, I was the household translator at a very young age.
The bridge. Yeah.
And so communication was an integrated part of my daily life, literally. And I also think that I'm sure me being silenced a lot as a kid and growing up in general, that must have had something to do with it. I just don't know why. I'm going to take this to my therapist next week and ask her. Oh, that's quite the connection.
Well, excuse me while I go pick up my jaw off the floor.
Same, man. Yeah, I know, right? That's quite the revelation to have. But yeah, so here we are on a couple of traumatized yappers, and today we're gonna get into the topic of pride versus shame.
Yes.
And how we experience that as first-gen American-born people, the children of immigrants, and tying together our identities of being first American born but as simultaneously as a children of immigrants, and how our culture and our background tied into that, and also what therapy taught us.
Yes.
So you want to kick it off?
Yeah, I will dive right in. One memory that I do have is second grade. Mom was still alive, and we had this huge assembly with the whole school, and I remember my name being called because I was student of the month, but I didn't know that at the time. So I heard my name and I was like, oh God, what did I do? Why am I in trouble? And now I'm going to get hazed in front of the entire school. Only for there to be a round of applause and smiles on my teacher's face, the principal's face, and them telling me to come up on stage, along with a handful of other kids from other classes, and me just feeling oh my God, what did I do? What's going on? Why are they smiling? Right? Because I am petrified. And then here they go, telling me that I was student of the month, and I was I don't understand, because I was just having fun with my friends and we were all learning together, which makes a really good teacher because I didn't know I was learning. I was just having fun. And it was, second grade was amazing. And a lot of people can't say that because they're first grade, second grade, I don't remember that, whatever. Unfortunately, second grade for me was very traumatic because it was later that, towards the end of the school year is when I lost my mom in May. But this was in December, I believe. So that first half of
Oh yeah, the school year.
Yeah, the school year. So, or just student of the month in general.
No, wait, I'm sorry. You got the award in December, you're saying?
Around that time, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know why I remember it's winter. I think everybody with their coats and jackets, maybe. Yeah. And I didn't know it would be a core memory, but here it is. Yeah. So we were talking about it. And I remember looking to the back of the room and my teacher pointing out oh, your parents are here. And I was like, no, they're not. They're at work or whatever that is. Right? As a kid, I was like, oh, nah, they're just just at home, like waiting for me, right? As a kid. But I remember looking in the back of the room and my mom wearing her shawl that she always wore, all while her being sick and suffering at that time and us not knowing. But her smile was the brightest thing that lit up that room in that building. And just her being so, like, just seeing her face, like, what's, like, just beaconing with pride. And then my dad just, like, waving like a maniac, just, like, trying to get our attention, trying to get my attention. And I'm like, I can clearly see. But when I saw that, like, I also knew, even at that age, like, in my head, I was like, oh, my God. Okay, so I have to do this all the time. I cannot mess this up because look how happy my parents are. And I don't know, and that was never, like, spoken to me directly about, like, you know, our happiness comes from you, as you know, excuse me, my parents saying our happiness comes from you doing good, so do good all the time, right? It was just already, like, indirectly, like, I just knew, like, I could not get bad grades because then my parents would not glean like this.
Do you think, if we can take a pause right there, like, do you think that may also have to do with the fact that you have older siblings, specifically like sisters, and seeing how your parents reacted to them, if they, like, for example, in that very specific example, if they got bad grades or...
That's a really good question. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because I do have two older sisters. One that's 12 years older than me. The middle one is 6 years older than me. And I saw my mom go to town on them. So I was like, okay.
So maybe it didn't have to be said.
Right. Yeah. It was just all visuals for me. But yeah, so like having that early on, having that being planted early on in my head as a kid. And like I said, it was later towards the end of that school year when my mom passed away of cancer. That was really hard.
Yeah, of course.
But that was a pride aspect, right? Even with pride, there was still this level of, not burden, but like weight.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool, I made you happy, and now I gotta keep this up.
Yeah.
If not, like, outdo it. And hence moving the goalpost. And something that we will talk about and double tap into later. And then and this one is, so that was pride. This is shame. And this was me going to college. Not that was shameful.
I mean, look, you never know which way the dice can roll.
Right. But probably for some of our listeners, maybe they didn't get into a UC and they had to go to a state college, and that was shameful. Like, let's be real. Like, if you didn't go to, you know, a doctorate school, if you didn't get into Harvard, you've, like, failed in the family's eye. Like, I know that there's people out there because I had friends like that, right, in their families. And it was really, really stressful.
Were they other first-gen American-born kids, or like did their family already attain that standard?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know 100%, but it was just like that Indian standard of.
Oh, these are specifically with.
Yeah, specifically with other Indian folks, which was only like one of my other friends.
Okay.
The Ricky Gervais of my friend group. I love him. Don't get me wrong, but he struggled with the same type of like expectations that I did in that and the pressures. But yeah, this one was me going to San Francisco State University. Go Gators! Chomp chomp! Stop bothering me about alumni legacy, please. Thank you.
Wait, is chomp chomp? Wait, hold on. Is chomp chomp? Is that a thing that you guys say at that school?
I'm kind of just making it up at this point.
Okay, because I was like, I didn't know about this.
Yeah, no.
We're improvising.
Yeah. I mean, we just got to. Yeah, so me going to college,
which is a feat in and of itself.
Thank you. But at that time, I told myself I'm just gonna grow my hair out because I always wanted to. My dad was like, "No, you will look dirty and you'll look like a hippie," and I'm like, "Okay," which is weird because I'm Sikh Punjabi, so it's like we're supposed to have long hair. Right. So I only bring that up because that was more of like an identity issue for me, where it was kind of like the pushback with my dad because he felt shame that I was growing out my hair and only to call me his hippie son. And I was like, okay, these are like fun jokes, but I know like you're upset underneath because I'm not fitting this status quo of like looking sharp, and me being like, no, I'm not going to get a haircut. Yeah, and it was always a thing my entire duration during college.
Okay, so to like kind of dive into like your dad's perspective of that and like, digging into that a little bit, like, do you think that maybe his criticism was coming from a place of insecurity because he cut his hair while still in India?
Oh, maybe he thought like if I grew out my hair, it was a gateway to other things. I don't know, long hair living in San Francisco, hippy dippy, whatever. And it's like, it's not 1970. There's worse drugs out there. But I think that's what my dad was fearful of, is me getting into like the wrong scene with the wrong people, because that's what he did.
So again, like, do we think that that is insecurity, or do we think that that's fear then? Like, if he was scared of you falling into like the wrong crowd like he did.
I don't know.
Or maybe something else completely. Who knows?
Yeah. I'm not really sure. I just knew that after I graduated and I grew out my hair for like 2.5 years, it was like below my shoulder blade, you know, like when it was straightened. So gorgeous head of hair. And for some reason, I believed my dad at that time that I had to cut my hair in order to get a job. And that goes into like, you know, the expectations of that parents have about like, you're an adult, but you're still my kid, and I'm gonna treat you like a kid. So
like, I know what's best for you. Insert heavy eye roll from me here, because geez Louise.
That's one example. And then graduating, right? Being able to graduate from San Francisco State. And my degree, it wasn't a celebration of my hard work, because I believe that my father saw it as a ticket to me being his cash cow, of me being able to take care of him, and me going back to the status quo of like, you know, moving back in with him after graduation, or like taking care of him, or buying a house or whatever, and us just kind of like living this life that he envisioned, that like I wouldn't do anything with my life other than just work and just take care of him, which I thought was weird. Yeah. And I feel like he didn't really trust me to be unsupervised.
What? You were unsupervised a lot though.
No, but as an adult. Oh. Like going to college and stuff, and it was like, no, Dad, you were the one that couldn't be unsupervised. So here we are. And I say that because my dad had severe gambling and alcohol problems. And so like growing up in general, for me, it was years of just getting good grades by any means necessary. That finally led to a college degree, and that was supposed to be my peak. But the cold reality was my dad not seeing me as a graduate and just more of a payout.
In a sense, I think that's marrying like our cultural background, right? Where we're typically expected to, especially like sons, right? Traditionally expected to like, take care of their parents as they age and whatnot. But also like the heavy expectation of, you're going to go and get educated. Not for your sake, but for my sake, you know, and that's tough. Because that's a duality that you like have to live with. And I will be very honest, like I don't even know if I had to deal with that as like a daughter. I wonder if like while talking through it, if that will be the case. But I mean, we'll dive into that deeper. But I think that's a difference that I see like almost instantly. Like, oh, like that's a possible different motivation in your case and experience about going to college and providing for.
Yeah. And I just find the irony of like other examples of immigrant parents telling their kids, you know, be a doctor, be a lawyer. But when was the last time they went to a doctor?
Be a doctor, be a lawyer is specifically to make me proud?
Yeah. Specifically to make me proud, in quote. Proud is in quotations. Yeah. Because it's more of like, but I can flex on my friends in the community about my kid.
Yeah. Or push you into a place where I don't care if you like it or not, but you're going to do it because... Yeah, I think it's the right thing for you to do, and it makes us look good as a family, which, you know, dives into enmeshment a little bit. You know, and I'm sure we're going to get into that a lot.
And optics.
Yeah.
And this reminded me of an example that when I used to work in healthcare as an administrative professional, I would also collaborate with doctors and stuff that were there at the clinic. And there was this one doctor, and he was Indian as well. And he was dressed to a T every day. Like, he just looked good just to look good. And it was kind of sad that he had to wear, like, that doctor's coat because his fit was always just...
Like suit tie? No blazer or anything?
No blazer. But just dressed to a T all the time. And whenever he did, like, share anything, he always talked about, like, the visual aspect. That, like, you know, it's important to be presentable to our patients because then they feel comfortable. Then they feel vulnerable enough. Then they feel trust, just, like, as a visual thing. But he was always about like fashion in general. And I always wondered, I was always like, were you forced to like do this? Because every meeting, like there's always like a fashion reference of like being presentable. And I always thought like, did you secretly want to be like a tailor or like a fashionista or something?
Oh, because, like a designer? Like, yeah, he was really in tune.
And just a really nice guy, and always had like an article on him about like some sort of fashion or something. Like him looked like a physical magazine is what I mean. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. What if he was the next great fashion designer, but felt pressure to like go into the medical industry? Yeah. Man, that's such a bummer. I mean, I always think about like what other, like representation, right? As a first American born person, how we just don't see a lot of us until, I mean, like we're starting to see more Indian folks in the spotlight, right? Now, but I mean, when we were kids growing up in the 80s and 90s, like that was so far and few in between. And I really do wonder, like, if our parents' generation or even the generations prior, if they just had autonomy to create their own life, run with their own dreams, and like what we could have seen back then and what would be so normal for us to have experienced and seen and like resonate with when we were children. Like, that doctor that you're talking about, like if he truly like wanted to be some type of fashion designer, the amount of inspiration he could be giving to young, specifically Indian boys. It's okay for me to be into what I'm into, and like I can be good at it because I love it, and that's all that matters. That's such a bummer. Yeah. The pride thing, which I will venture to say, like bleeding into ego, like immigrant parent egos, like it can be such a roadblock to greatness, ironically enough. Because like what if he became a great fashion designer, was very well to do and provided not just for his parents but for his entire family, which is kind of, maybe a little counterintuitive to like what we're talking about, but like that's such a source of pride as well. And like, okay, sorry, but we do need to go a little bit deeper with that, because like you were saying that he was talking about like optics / aesthetics, right? Of like what the patients see and whatnot. Yeah. Which I think is his patient seeing someone who is a POC who's well dressed, like allows them to connect or like take them more seriously. But that's a bummer, because like, what if you did just want to show up in slacks and a polo? Right. Like, why are you less relatable, or why are you taking less seriously? Because I mean, I'll speak from my own personal experience. Not the current doctor that I have, but the doctor before this, my PCP, she was a young Sikh Punjabi woman who, she wore her slacks and her blouses and stuff, but that didn't matter to me. The fact that she showed me humanity and she made an effort to connect, and that I saw myself in her as another like Indian woman, like that's the part that let me know I was gonna get great care, not what she wore. Right, and to be quite honest, like there were days where she didn't even I remember that I had appointments with her where she didn't even wear her white coat. It was just her and her badge. And us chatting for like 45 minutes about like what my current concern was about my health and stuff. Like that's the part that made the difference. Yeah, so I totally agree what you're saying about watering the relationship with your patients. I guess force these like bids for a connection with his current profession versus his love of like fashion, and trying to bridge it somehow, some way. Or what if his current profession was just fueling his fashion obsession? Well, wherever you are, mystery fashion doctor, I hope you're doing well, and I hope you've been able to lean in more to like what you love and what genuinely makes you happy. And who knows, maybe he's happy being a doctor who's like flexing with fashion every day. I don't know. I mean, what's for you is for you. I'm not gonna yuck no one's yum. So like with all those examples that you provided, like about yourself and Mr. Fashion Doctor, or Dr. Fashion, we're gonna call him Dr. Fashion from here on out. When you started going to therapy, like what did that help you like kind of unpack / realize? I had to truly be okay with who I am as a person, and that I have to be honest and true to myself, because growing up with my dad, like I always felt like I had to help him and take care of him, right? And until graduation, until I saw that he realized my son's basically my cash cow, I had to take a hard look at myself and be like, is this what I'm gonna do, right? Or am I going to try to live my life for myself? Like, how do I navigate both boats at the same time, at that time? Yeah. Right? Yeah. Not realizing that I had to make a choice. A really hard choice, but the right choice. And normally, when you do the right things, they're really hard. Yeah, no, they absolutely, yeah. And once I decided to stay in San Francisco after graduating, my dad would always ask me, so when are you going to come back? Because you said that you would, right?
and like start a life in the valley where he was. And I always told him, I was like, yeah, when you said that you would stop gambling and drinking is when I would come back. And he didn't like that. And I know me saying that out loud is like, oh my God, why would you say that? Why would you air out your dirty business? Why would you talk to your dad like that?
Acknowledging the issue.
Yeah, and that's what I learned through therapy too after the fact. That was my attempt of holding my dad accountable. When you hold a loved one accountable, that's not being mean. That's not being confrontational. That's not being like, oh, you're just trying to start an argument. That's not it. It's actual love and care. Where it's like, hey, I'm holding you accountable because I know the potential that you have and you deserve to live a full life and a happy life and not one where you're struggling with addiction. And so for me as your son, like, you need to be held accountable. And he didn't like that. And I had to choose, like, to be a good son to a man who wouldn't help himself or be a disappointment to a man so I could finally be a person. Because our parents are only people.
At the end of the day,
I know I was a lot older when I realized that because a lot of people I think see their parents as heroes, and I don't blame them. I know I did when I was a kid, but they're not.
Yeah.
They're not superheroes. Let me rephrase that. They're not superheroes. They're just people as well.
Yeah.
And before my dad was a dad, he was just a dude.
Yeah.
That's something I learned through therapy.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was really helpful to see my dad in a different type of light so I can really humanize myself other than just being labeled as like the son that needs to do good and take care of him all the time. Yeah. What about your pride versus shame examples?
Man, well, I mean,
tell us about you going to college.
Yeah, okay. So being the first in my family to do that, right? It was already big. But being on track to do so, like, I think that's where the seeds of pride were being planted, like realizing, like, oh, this is like, you know, most likely going to be a reality for me. Yeah, and setting that bar for myself and then not realizing, like, but I always have to now from here on out, I have to continue raising the bar, which was really tough. I did my apps and stuff. Okay, so this is the tendency of my life in these big moments where I don't find out until like after everyone else does. And I will tell you why. So I did my apps, and please keep in mind that I was the first in my family to even apply for college and be doing all these things, right? And so, you know, admissions are coming out in the spring in your senior year. And I remember I was in my AP US history class. Yes, I took all the AP courses that I could because, hello, overachiever, eldest daughter, trauma, right? And having to make my parents proud. Okay, let me just put that there. And I think that was my first period class, and I remember some of my friends were talking. They're like, "Oh yeah, like I checked my account this morning, and like I, you know, was rejected or accepted here and there." And I was like, "Wait a second, like admissions are already." Oh, so now like I'm on, you know, like I hear that, and I'm kind of on pins and needles throughout the class, and then I just forgot about it for the rest of the school day. And then the next day when I went to school, people were talking about it again. And I was like, "Oh shoot, I never checked." So I went home that day. My dad, at that time, he had a cleaning business. And so it was me and my brother at home. He had already left. That was like his second job, right? And so I was at home by myself with my brother, and I went upstairs to our PC that had a tower that you had to push a button and like had the bulky screen and stuff. And I logged into my UC account, and I saw, I think what was like, congratulations, exclamation point, when my brain just wasn't processing it. And then I realized, oh my God, I just got into Davis and I'm at home by myself with my brother who's 10.5 years younger than me. And my parents aren't home, so I'm like, oh God, and my mom wasn't even off of work. So I had called my mom because I knew when her breaks were at work, and I was like, hey, like, you know, when you come home, I was super excited. I was like, when you come home, like, I want to talk to you and Dad about something. She was like, oh, okay. And then Dad got home, and then my mom got home shortly after. My dad, I remember, he was standing, we were in the kitchen. I had come downstairs to say hi to my mom, and we were in the kitchen. You know, I'm like juiced. I'm like, oh my God, I did this thing that's going to make them super proud because this is all they've been talking about. So you guys know, like, I wanted to talk to you about something. And even before I could get the words out of like, I got into Davis, my mom looked at me and she goes, are you pregnant? And I was like, What? And even my dad, like, looked at my mom, I remember, like, out of the corner of my eye, like, very confused. And I was like, no, I just got into Davis.
What a way to like sour your excitement and joy. Just
Which is, I mean, very on brand for my mom, because and we'll get into that. And I don't say that with any malice, but it is a tendency that she does have. And I remember like being very thrown off, but at the same time, like not having the time to process what she said and what that meant and like the layers to that, because my dad immediately starts crying, and my dad is not a crier. Like he immediately starts crying, and my mom was like, "Oh my gosh!" And she hugs me, and like, I hug her back, but in my head I was like, "Why would you think I'm pregnant? Like, is that what you expect out of me?" And my dad is still crying throughout all of, like, my brain is going 1,000 miles per hour, and my dad's just standing at the sink crying, and then like we hug and stuff, and I didn't think about what she said until many years later, and I think that was because I was so used to receiving that type of feedback. And so while I did this thing that made them ultimately very proud, years later I realized like, oh, she always anticipated for me to bring some sort of shame to the family, and that was really hard for me to like accept, and I still struggle with it, because I'm still trying to figure out like, why would you anticipate that from me, but also knowing and understanding like the day and age she grew up in, which was like, if you got pregnant, you ruined your life, and that kind of feeds into like an example of shame that I have. But it was really, really sad, for that teenage version of myself. Like, oh, your mom just kind of waited for you to mess up. So there was that, and then I learned what shame was as a daughter. I remember I was in middle school. So I was like, 12, 13 maybe. Yeah. And my mom was dropping me off to school. My brother is in the backseat in his car seat. And it's early morning. It's quiet in the car. I think maybe the radio was on. And out of nowhere, my mom turns to me and she goes, and I think this was her attempt at the sex talk. Let me just preface it with that. She turns to me and she goes, your brother, he can get 100 women pregnant and no one's going to say anything. But if you get pregnant, your entire life is ruined. And that's such a shameful thing to do to us. And I was like, and mind you, like, this is, obviously I was younger because I was in middle school. So this is like pre-college acceptance, right? So like the tone was already being set. Yeah. And I was very like taken aback because like we literally weren't like, that's how she opened up the drive to school. And I was like, what is going on? And I would also like to add in the detail, like I was a very late bloomer. Like because like I was so petrified of everything and boys and like even socializing, because that was kind of kept from me. And because I think my parents, specifically my mom, was like really scared about like what could happen versus just like letting me make friends and whatnot. I honestly didn't notice boys or, stuff like that until like much later on. So that was like already confusing. I was like, how do you even get pregnant? What sex was, because I had sex ed right in school, but like I didn't know, like, how do you just meet someone and you do that? Like I didn't understand how that worked. And so that was very complicated for me, because I was like, oh, okay, so because I am a female, my body brings shame. Like that concept was instilled in me at a young age, and too young of an age, and I actually don't think it should have ever been instilled. Now knowing, and like, me being a mom now, and specifically to a daughter, like that was really messed up. And then also like the double standard, like literally my baby brother, who's a toddler in the backseat, like he's able to do whatever the heck he wants, and like no one's gonna say anything. Yeah. Like just because he's the one who doesn't have to carry the child, like that was crappy. So to understand that like I innately brought shame because I was a female, like messed with me for a very, very long time. And that's probably why, like, if you know me now in real life, I am nothing but a champion for women. Like girls, girl. Yeah, I absolutely 110%. I want that to be on my tombstone. Mm. That like I'm just a girl's girl. Like
noted.
Yeah. No, truly, like I will champion, and let's be very clear. I don't hate men. I don't.
Oh, clearly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Yeah,
I would hope not.
Yeah, because I also know that, like, you know, in society and culture today, like, there kind of can be an assumption that, oh, if you're a girl's girl, that can mean that you, like, you know, are Xing off all men. And it's no, that's not the case. I find it very, very, very important to champion women because I know what it was like to not be championed. And you can probably hear that still messes with me sometimes.
What are you feeling right now?
Just really sad for younger me. She didn't really have excuse me, she didn't really have you know, anyone to, like, advocate for her. Like, I was already guilty of something the second I was born. And it's really bizarre because, so I get that treatment from my mom, right? And then here's my dad, who couldn't care. Genuinely. Like, he couldn't care. Like, my dad taught me how to, I mean, you know this, but, like, if you wanted me to build you a house, I could build you a house because of what my dad taught me. He taught me how to, like, do roofing, do tiling, how to, like, pour cement, and, I mean, landscaping, like, all of the things. And I'm so grateful for that because he really didn't want me to feel the difference of having been born a female. And, Jesus Christ. I still remember, like, you know, jumping to present day. Just, like, was it last summer? When we were finishing off our garage and we had our contractors, also a good friend of ours. Yeah, he was helping us paint and stuff in there, and I was helping out, and we had to paint the door. And he was like, oh yeah, like, I have to remove the door handle. And I was like, oh, I got it. And he watched me do it, and I did it. I mean, it's literally just a couple screws. And he was like, I've never seen a woman do that. And I was like, it's just a couple screws. I didn't, because my dad, like, made it such a normal thing for me, right? And he has always been so proud, even, like, in our, you know, different circumstances right now in our relationship that we're trying to work out. Like, it's something that brings him so much joy as well as pride, knowing that he has such a capable daughter. Like, I mean, I don't think he meant to do this, but he raised me to, like, literally need no man. Like, I could do it all. And which is why I feel like our marriage for me is so special because, like, I genuinely want to be in this marriage with you.
Girl, I knew from the second you didn't need no man at all.
Complete side.
But I was also so infatuated with you is like, I don't care. I'm going to give it my best shot.
Aww.
And I'm not going to let this opportunity pass me whatsoever.
Real special.
That's because you are.
Thank you. As are you.
This ain't about me right now. Let's...
Yeah, complete side tangent. But yeah, like, it's interesting because I grew up with, you know, two parents who had very different views of literally who I was just born as.
Yeah.
And what if that brought pride versus shame to them. So that's, yeah, that was an experience to say the least. And I feel like I have duality, like, in other big moments in my life too, where, like, when I got my offer at Google, which was many moons ago, I'm very, very grateful. I remember you and we were vacationing in Portland, and we went to that bookstore. But yeah, there was, like, a basement part of it, so, like, I didn't have signal, and this all ties in, I promise. So we come up from the bookstore, and I had a voicemail from the recruiter, and she was like, hey, you know, she sounded happy, and I was like, oh, okay. Like, you know, I had a feeling this is going to be good news, and so I called her back, and she was like, we actually want to extend you the offer. And I, of course, like, in the middle of Portland.
Owls. City of books.
There we go. Oh my gosh. And look, as a bookworm, like, man, that is an experience, that bookstore, for sure. If you can go, please go.
Thank you, pals, for all the memories.
Yeah, no, truly, yeah. So, got the offer, we had lunch, and I remember, like, you know, you and I, like, it was super proud, super happy.
Still proud. Yeah. Still happy.
Yeah. And just, you know, that experience of, like, oh my gosh, like, this is so cool. We soaked it up, and I'm so glad I soaked it up for myself because we went back to the hotel later that day, and of course, because of me still being in the weeds of enmeshment, I was like, I gotta call my parents and tell them. I felt the need to tell my parents, not, like, necessarily wanting to tell my parents. Yeah, like, I felt...
Even with this type of good news.
Yeah, because my my good news is their good news, right? And like, sadly, I also thought like the more accomplishments and the more success I had, they would love me more.
Ooh, ouch.
I would say my mom actually specifically, because as you can tell, like there's kind of a pattern here between her and I. And so
I feel like that's a common pattern of kids in general chasing their parents to love them.
First gen American born. Yeah, and call them, and my dad, you could hear the smile in his voice, and he was like, oh my God, that is so good, congratulations, I'm so happy for you, good job, you know, and like he's not too much of an emotional talker, but like you could tell he was clearly very happy. And I kid you not, all my mom said was, oh, good for you.
Just like that.
Yes, in a very flat, monotone way, like just, oh, good for you. And I was like,
it's not like some mysterious company you just got accepted to. It's something that's on everybody's device. I'm sorry, that's nonsense.
It was, that was tough. Now I'm looking back at it, that was tough. And the moment I just wrote it off as like, oh, that's just who my mom is. And also me being overly empathetic, because I knew at that time she was having a lot of issues at work with her manager and such. Unfortunately, now I can say that's no surprise. Me knowing what I know now through therapy and personality types and such. Soon after, actually, we had a family dinner, because it's funny because it kind of revolved around college admissions. This time my brother got accepted to college, to his dream school. My brother, we had a phone call, and you know, we were just talking, and I was like, hey, like, do you ever hear from mom like that she's proud of you? And he was like, yeah, why? And then I was like, even if she doesn't say the word that she's proud of you. And he was like, yeah, like she like always like affirms me and like gives me, you know, like encourages me and stuff. And I was like,
what?
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay, that's different. He was like, well, what's going on?
He's like, that's not the same for you?
Yeah, he's like, hold on, right? And I told him like our mom's reaction to me sharing that I had gotten a job offer at Google. He's like, that's so weird. And so now cut to this dinner, and he all of a sudden out of nowhere he was like, hey mom, you know, like you need to tell Gigi that like you're actually proud of her and like encourage her. And you could tell she's fuming on the inside and that she's embarrassed. And I think that was because specifically you were there.
Little old me.
Yeah. Because she was being called out. Like,
in front of her son-in-law.
Yeah.
No.
Well, the thing was like my brother was just trying to like be helpful.
Yeah.
But she interpreted that as an attack.
Because your brother was holding her accountable.
Yeah.
Okay, let's loop that back.
And had she just taken the step of being accountable and saying like, you know, you're right. Like, hey, and just turning to me like, hey, Rishma, I'm proud. She did not do that. Instead, I don't know where the heck she got this from, but she looked at him and looked at me and was like, well, like, why? Like, because once proud, always proud. And I was like, what? Like, so you'll actively tell the other child who happens to be a son with all these positive, validating, encouraging things. But for me, it's like, no big deal. Like, that was hard. And then a part of me also like had to question like, okay, so if it doesn't, like, I see that apparently this makes you proud, but it, like, you won't say it. So it's like, are you actually proud or are you ashamed of me? I was so confused for so long around, like, the way my mom would, like, you know, give me feedback. So in turn, I will admit, like, I think that also messed with just how proud I would allow myself to feel of my own accomplishments, because I was like, well, I must not be doing as great as I think I am because she's not telling me that she feels that way, you know? And that was just a bummer to have to like navigate that mentally. And there was a lot of mental gymnastics involved there. I will also like, you know, share very vulnerably here that that had such an impact on me that I remember it was the night before my first day at Google. And this was the first time where I had ever taken time off in between jobs. And I felt like such a big girl because I was like, oh my God, I'm going to take intentional time for myself. I had like a whole meltdown. Like I cried until midnight or something because I was like, dang, like, why won't she just say the words that she's proud of me? Like this really hurts. And there's proof of that actually, because if you look at my badge, you could clearly tell that my eyes are super puffy and small. And it's because I was crying the whole night before, which is, it's not funny. I don't laugh because it's funny. It's just like, man, if I don't laugh, I'm going to cry all over again. So I feel like my exposure to like pride and shame through my parents like lived in duality, because typically the things that I did made my dad really proud, but then like I could not tell if a good thing made my mom proud or if she was indifferent to it. Yeah. But like she made it very clear to me that like me being born a female, I was more prone to shame than anything. Which was really hard.
It must have been so confusing just growing up in general. Oh my God, like hearing praises from your dad and being like, you're gonna learn how to put a roof together, and like him actively watering that relationship with his daughter. And I think your dad knew that in this country, and you know, being a boy, being a girl didn't matter because it was about the effort and the amount of work that you put in, and you can go anywhere. And this wall that your mom would constantly put up, you don't have to scale this fence all the time, you know, like but she would deliberately put it there for you.
But that also ties into like how she grew up, right? Like coming from, and this is, you know, like where we see the humanity in people. Like my mom grew up, she's one of 9 children. She grew up with her parents and then her paternal grandparents all under the same roof. And like a little tin roof house in Fiji. When you have that many kids and you need to keep them in line while you also are working in the field, like you do instill fear in them as a parenting tactic. And I don't know if she was ever able to like, given the time or peace to be able to recognize those things about herself and like how she grew up and such. And so she just instantly passed it down to me being a girl child. And for me now, like even before we knew that we were gonna have a daughter, like I very intentionally knew like I at the very least wanted to be a really, really good mom. I didn't want our children to struggle or suffer the same ways that you and I did, because they're gonna have their own struggles. That's the thing.
Yeah, like they're supposed to. But it's supposed to be their own thing during their own timeline with their own generation. With whatever that is, versus them trying to repair our trauma. Or
they're not responsible for our trauma or our feelings at all.
So the buck stops here.
Yeah, completely. And so I shared these things that I experienced between my parents and I, right? And I have made the effort to actually hold my mom accountable for these things that she has said / done. I get the feedback of like, no, I didn't do that, or well, that's not what I meant, or you're taking it the wrong way.
Defensive.
Yeah, very defensive. And like I will say, it used to drive me insane when she would do stuff like that. And it's still, you know, like it still is upsetting, but it doesn't grind my gears. And I think I'm able to understand that better because she has shared with me that she grew up in a way where what her parents said and did was the absolute best for them. In which, okay, you know, I will believe that. But that was applicable to her circumstances, which are very, very, very different than my circumstances. And again, like I'm super grateful that I grew up in, you know, different and admittedly like better circumstances than my mom. But that still doesn't mean that like it gives her a pass to not have been more thoughtful about her parenting. I think if that's something that like I have learned as someone who knew that they wanted to be a parent at some point, and now being a parent, I have to adapt to the world that my child is growing up in, not the world that I know. Because we can have oversights about the world that we grew up in because we have bias, because we grew up in a different time and age, and like life gets busy, and so you're not always in tune with what's changing and such, or like what's new or whatnot. So it is my job as a parent to do my due diligence, and like I'm not gonna know everything, but like, hey, like if our kid comes to us and says like XYZ is going on, I'm not gonna sit there and tell them like, no, that can't be true. Like that's invalidating. Like don't do that. Instead, it's my job to be like, oh, but like kind of like double click into that and be like, well, what was happening there? And I think that's something that therapy has taught me, is listen to someone's situation from their point of view the best you can. You're not going to nail it 100% every single time, but think about yourself in their shoes and how they must have experienced that. That wasn't something that was demonstrated to me by my mom, which was a bummer. And my dad's not perfect, but I will say like he tried very hard to understand me, and he gave me pockets of peace of just like letting me be myself, you know, and just be a kid. When that was available to us, it was really hard to like do that with my mom. Yeah, in the way that she chose to parent. I didn't think that this was gonna still feel so fresh. And like, look, like that's something that therapy has also taught me. It's like sometimes when you revisit these things, and just because you feel all this stuff doesn't mean that you're not like healed from it or you don't know better from it. It's just, these are my feelings.
They still need to be processed.
Yes.
Just because you had a really good cry session one time doesn't mean like it's all out of your system, right? Like, because those things are instilled. Like,
no, there can also be days where I can talk about this stuff like very matter of fact and not really feel much about it. Therapy has taught me it's okay for me to feel differently about the same thing from time to time.
Yeah.
It just depends on like what's going on in my life, or, you know, what kind of day I've had, or, you know, what's coming up. Like I had mentioned International Women's Day earlier, like that being a possible reason why I'm emotional about all this. But
appreciate you wearing your Whitney Houston shirt.
The late, the great Whitney Houston.
Because I don't know if you know this, but I do know every woman is Whitney Houston.
Yeah. There we go. How you feeling?
Good. I'm still juiced and sparky. I don't know why I use that word.
It's going to be your thing now. You're Mr. Sparky. We have Dr. Fashion and Mr. Sparky in one episode.
Look, it is what it is at this point. But no, I'm feeling really good.
All right, hun. So any second thoughts after this episode?
My second thought is more of a realization.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more like that inner critic that we have. The harsh inner critic is never truly you, is what I want to say to people out there. It might sound like you, it might even look like you, but at the end of the day, we're all human beings that know how to give love and maybe not receive love, because we don't understand what that looks like. But I guess the point that I'm trying to bring home is that you have control over that inner voice. It'll take time to course correct what that's supposed to sound like to you. But as human beings, we always remember the bizarre, hurtful things because those are very painful. And so what I'm getting at is that this inner critic that you might have in your head was never you to begin with. And I want you to know that you have the volume switch to dim that voice down. And it does not need to live with you. And just know that you can be happy and you can learn to love yourself every single day. So keep at it. Keep doing it. Don't give up. You don't have to be stuck in this mental rut, essentially. You have a lot of power within you, and I hope you see that and recognize it and just keep working towards it. Any second thoughts, sweetheart?
It was so difficult to have been so confused basically my whole childhood and not being able to have proper definitions or ideas of what pride versus shame was. But on second thought, does it really matter now? Because I get to formulate that for myself.
Well.
Yeah. Does it truly, does that matter? And also, this is kind of where my intuition ties in. Like, I know what is actually something for me to be proud of versus something for me to be ashamed of. I took my power back in, and I'm really happy about it. And I try to be a really good example of that too. Like, I am very upfront with the people, the adults and children alike in our family, where I tell them like, hey man, like I'm really proud of you. I mean, admittedly more so with the kids, because you know they should hear it all the time. I want them to know that like I'm proud of them for just being themselves and existing, you know. I actually remember one of the first times where I had told our nephew that I was proud of him. I was like, hey man, like I'm really proud of you. And he goes, oh, why? Well, what did I do? And I was like, just for being you. And he's like, oh, okay. Thanks. And I was like, see, that it should be that normal for a child to know them existing, them doing the things is enough. Just them being themselves is the baseline of something to be proud of. And that's what my lived experience in my childhood has taught me. So it wasn't for naught. Well, I think that concludes this topic/episode. And we really, really appreciate everyone for listening. If you have any thoughts, feedback, questions, please give us a follow on Instagram at firstgensecondthoughts. You can always email us too at firstgensecondthoughts@gmail.com as well. We are available on Substack, and just as of this week, we are on Spotify and
Apple Podcasts.
Yay!
So yeah, you can find us that way. But if I can just go back a little bit, and you mentioned taking back your power.
Yeah.
I just want to double click into that. Because that's a really big thing that a lot of first-gen born kids may not understand or realize. And it's kind of like a silent thing about taking back your power. That often the first step towards saving yourself is really disappointing your parents.
Amen. It is so, so true.
And I think both of us in therapy, we have learned that you can be a good person even if your parents don't agree with your choices. Granted, you are not harming yourself or anyone around you. We're talking about the choices that you want to make with your life that your parents may not see or understand because they're not listening to you. They don't know who you are. And that's a really hard thing to digest and understand. And I think this is why we have this episode of pride versus shame.
Yeah.
Where it's like, how can I be prideful of myself as a person? And again, that duality, that tug of war, this constant like, well, do I do what I want? Or do I do what my parents want?
That's such a good point to make, though. And also to like add more color to about me taking my power back. I will admit the process was like through anger. And then now I realize that I did it with the motivation of being free. And like knowing that...
Yo, what?
Yeah, like I took my power back and that has given me the freedom to be me. And here's the thing, I'm not a crappy person. I and because it really, I mean, you know, like when you come at it with the lens of like our parents, it's like if you're going against your parents, it just like immediately makes you a bad parent. And that's what they knew growing up, right? But like... just because my choices look differently than my parents doesn't mean that I'm a bad person. It's inevitable for my choices to look different than my parents because I grew up in literally a completely different world than them. I have access to completely different things than they did. And that's not a bad thing. It's okay.
Another thing therapy taught me.
Yeah.
The humanity part. How you mentioned like you both were growing up in two different worlds.
Oh, yeah.
So like this whole concept of like... what, are you pregnant, right?
Yeah.
Also, like, I'm just trying to keep in mind of, like, what was happening during that time for them in the 90s, right? You had Jerry Springer. You had Ricky Lake. You had Jenny Jones. You had Sally Jesse Raphael. You had Maury, right? And that's all that was happening. Yeah. And that's all that was happening on TV. Yeah. So, God, as a parent in the 90s, I'd be petrified, too.
Yeah.
About, like,
if I saw that stuff, I'd be like, this is the world my child is growing up in.
Especially if you didn't grow up here, right? And just know like that's just a niche thing for television. But it's like, oh my God, this is America?
Yeah, no. That's scary. Truly, yeah. Oh, that's such a good point to make.
Again, therapy.
Yeah.
Helping us understand all the hard things.
Again, thanks for listening, y'all. We'll be back next week. And remember, we're proud of you, Beta. See you next time.
Very proud. Peace.